Uh, but happy Tuesday. I'm super excited to be here with you tonight. If you're joining me live, awesome. Feel free to use the chat box. You can unmute yourself. The default is I always have mute on, but I mean, by all means, unmute yourself. And if you're watching this on recording, I hope for day one, you're getting some steps in because tonight is going to be more listening and learning. And then tomorrow night, you're going to be wanting some pen to paper and you're going to be downloading the meal plan. Hi, Nori. I love seeing some of my long-term our long-term family, I should say, here, because, even if you're a part of Look Like You Train, or maybe you've been a client, I always feel like you can never learn enough and kind of just reiterate, especially to your brain, like what matters. Kind of a bit more conviction. I always feel like conviction really helps guide us versus us always having like this indecisiveness. So I'm going to continue to let people in, but like I said, feel free to use the chat. I will look at the chat every now and then, but for the most part, I'm going to be sharing my screen. I'll go through what I'm going to teach tonight. And then, of course, I will look at the chat and go through that. So if you have questions as they come up, feel free to put them in there. I will, like I said, continue to let people in because that seems to be a nonstop job. But let me make sure that I've got what I'm going to present ready. So I will introduce myself. Let me just let the last of everyone in right now. And I will share my screen. I'm recording. That's something that I do not want to forget. All right. Let's see here. All right. Can everyone see my screen? It says the hidden cost of tracking. Hopefully that's what you see. And, I've done this. I've been notorious for like, I am talking about something that I think I'm sharing and no one dares to say anything. But tonight is going to be about 45 minutes long. I'm really going to try to honor your time and mine because I know how important that is. But I'm hoping by the end of tonight, there's going to be a lot of nodding of the head, agreeing with me, understanding the frustrations that maybe you're having with tracking, so that by the time we head into day two, you're going to download my free meal plan and we'll get into that because it's so funny how many people resist this, and it's the exact same meal plan that we give and Look Like You Train. So it's not like I'm just giving you like one day of something. I'm literally giving you something that is well, I just finished a 28-day challenge that, had everyone losing fat. So hopefully you're going to take advantage of that. But tonight we're going to talk about the hidden cost of tracking and, what it's costing you over time. And hopefully by the end of this, you're going to see the need to get away from MyFitnessPal and move more into what we call the meal card method. And why this tool that once was used to really help you, it helped me, and we'll go into that, eventually becomes something that's going to hurt you over time. It's not something that it will make it sustainable. And so hopefully I get you to a place where you understand it yourself, because I don't ever want to convince anyone. I always tell people that conviction is a bigger convincer than someone else's influence. So hopefully by the end of this, you see for yourself that, MyFitnessPal isn't the long-term solution. So if you don't know who I am, my name is Amy Ladine. I am the other half of Lean Bodies Consulting. I've been coaching now for, well, let's see, I lost my 90 pounds. I hit my goal the week I found out I was pregnant with my 23-year-old. I remember this because I could not believe that I just hit my Weight Watchers goal and found out I was pregnant. But so I lost my weight about 23 years ago, and through the love and passion of losing it, I started teaching group fitness classes. And I've kept it off all these years. I can't say that I've kept it off in a healthy way all these years. The first 10 years came from a place of hate, a place of not really understanding the identity shift. And I was just playing a role. I would go on and off the cycle. I would go from, people from the outside maybe wouldn't see it, but it was like gaining and losing the same 10 pounds. But more than anything, it was crushing my confidence. Now, when I first got into losing the weight actually was through Weight Watchers. So while it wasn't tracking macros, it was tracking points. And that was like my first introduction to the obsession of numbers. Now, back then they didn't have MyFitnessPal, so they actually had a Calorie King book. Does anyone remember Calorie King and how they had like a little book that you could like carry around and it had all the calories and points? So I was a psycho. Like I was the person that read that cover to cover. I knew the points of everything. I knew the trick that if you could find fiber in things that it would lower the points. So then I became someone that was obsessed with looking for fiber products and then it would move on to the next big buzzword thing. And honestly, I was a prisoner to some sort of macro or tracking way back even with Weight Watchers. However, when I got away from Weight Watchers and MyFitnessPal came, to the scene and it was, if it fits your macros was a big, buzz, I was rejoiced because I'd come from a meal plan where I'd had a coach that gave me just one meal plan. We didn't have, a food substitution calculator like we do at Lean Bodies Consulting. And we didn't have anything like this. So you were really stuck in there. It's when I started to have a lot of food issues where the tighter your circle of foods is, the bigger you fall off. And so I would have like these, how many of you remember Body for Life? Where you had 6 days of the week where you were like really, really restrictive and super, super on. And then that seventh day, it was like a free for all. That just became like an all out binge for me. So then when we got into macro tracking, while I did love it, I was exhausted. I found myself like I couldn't even eat a meal without first going. We had my fit day. It wasn't MyFitnessPal when I had my whole account in there. And I had like every food that I'd ever buy, I'd go and put in there. And it just I stopped enjoying food. I stopped trusting myself when I went out. It was just looking at numbers and I wasn't even paying attention to like how I felt. And so I knew that this was something that couldn't be long-term sustainable. So when I hired Lean Bodies Consulting, they had meal plans. He did have a little cheat sheet, Eric did, that he gave out, but it wasn't a lot of variety. So I reached out to him and asked him if I could start a blog on his website and if I could take his meal plan and like his actual like diet and start to show variety. And so through that, I started creating um, protein pancakes and post-workout treats that were really great. And it started to give me more flexibility. But again, I was starting to go down the path of like every meal I'd eat, meal to meal, I'd be going and refactoring it, right? And especially if you were given macros for the day, the problem with the macros for the day were, I could start off the day and it was like calorie roulette. One day 700 calories for breakfast, the next day 200 calories for breakfast. So all over the place. And the thing with the tracking trap that a lot of us don't give enough credit to is that it actually elevates your cortisol. It's actually stressing you out more by doing this. And they've done some pretty interesting studies around this. There was actually a former competitor, she's got a podcast where she's talked a lot about this, where she found it very fascinating that when she used to compete, that just the stress around the idea of eating the meal, she was a daily tracker where she would track all these metrics, that just being in the presence of a meal that stressed her out, the next day she would be up 1.8 to 2 pounds on the scale. Now, that may not seem like a lot to anyone, but someone that's tracking daily and not seeing any difference in their caloric intake, it at least raised a flag to her that, wow, just the idea of stressing over the meal itself is causing enough elevation in my, cortisol that I'm having a little bit of inflammation. It's masking true fat loss. We all know that that doesn't really matter. But to the person that's tracking daily, this starts to make them stress even more, right? Because then it's like here they're tracking their macros, they get on the scale the next day, they're up like 2 pounds. They're already thinking that they need to change something when the reality is this is just stress from the daily tracking of that. So the science behind this, oh, it's not even showing my whole, that's interesting. Um, let me go on to this one here. But behind this, we see like a seesaw. And, when we've got that seesaw, if we can find the balance in between it, we've got safety. But on the stress side, a deficit is going to cause stress. There's just no two ways around it. The body does not, if we see it as homeostasis is here, anything below that is not getting what the body wants its needs to be met with, and so that's a stress. So with that, we've got to have the balance on the other side, the safety side. So with the deficit, it would mean that the opposite would be recovery, meaning like we don't always stay in a deficit. We teach our clients that we take intentional dieting breaks and we go to maintenance, right? On one side, the stress side, we've got our cortisol that gets stressed over maybe the decisions around it. The safety side would be having more trust in the understanding. So it would be like having more of a meal plan where we see a menu and we start to see it as food versus the numbers behind it. On one side, someone would see the stress of a diet as a form of control, whereas someone else can see that as its structure, which can be a form of release and freedom, right? So we've got to see it. Sometimes it may just be a matter of us changing our perspective on something, but for most of us, we're going to see it ourselves. The consequences of over tracking. One, and this is one that all of us are going to have, whether it's like obsessive over tracking or not, and that is that metabolic adaptation. Your body is going to slow down to match that constant restriction, which is going to make fat loss over time harder, and most of us experience it no matter the approach that we have. Now, the amount, because a restriction is no matter what evidence, you're by evidence, you're going to have that adaptation. However, what's going to add more resistance to that current, I guess I should say, is going to be the constant into your MyFitnessPal. It's going to be because you're losing maybe trust in yourself through the process. Instead of listening to like your hunger cues, you're basically at the mercy of your MyFitnessPal or your tracking device. Like for me, I wasn't really paying attention to my meal timing. And instead, it was like I was seeing numbers at the beginning of the day. I have, 1,700 calories and 170 grams of protein or whatever it may be. Start my first meal of the day. Again, maybe I've got a little bit of structure to there where I typically have protein pancakes, or maybe I have, egg whites and oats. But some days I might go, oh, you know what? I'm feeling like having this. And next thing you know, that's 700 calories. So then now I've got to adapt to go to the next meal and then at the next meal. And I mean, how many of you have been guilty of by the end of the day, you've got like some random amount of calories and you're like, what do I do with this? Like, how do I fit this into my, day to actually make it a meal? And then it's no wonder then we struggle with kind of pausing and seeing our food for food. Instead, we're so used to seeing the numbers and we're hyper fixated on these numbers that we never really pause and go, I mean, do I even like my food? Am I enjoying my food? Is this easy for me to, stick to? And I use the word easy loosely because I don't think that fat loss is easy at all. But how about a sustainable approach, right? We don't see that. And so over time, this over tracking, we go through cycles where we feel like we need it. So we go back to it. It always comes back to like our home base. But then after a few weeks, we're like, enough already. I just can't do it. But the reality is the data does matter. You've got to know the numbers to some degree. So you're going to see that even in our approach, initially you are going to have some numbers that you need to be aware of. But what we try to show you over time is that as you start to create meals and you start to see the power of distributing your calories based on your lifestyle, based on the way you live, you start to see less of those macronutrients and more of okay, I've got this meal container. What do I want to eat at this meal container? How many calories have I allotted there? And I start to use that every day. So if you've followed me for a while, you'll know like I've got magic numbers. 400 is a number I use very often. You're going to see in the meal plan that you download, every meal plan that I have created has at least one 400 calorie meal container on there so that you can use all of my meal cards and start to see the way that I implement this into my life. Um, so some of the signs that you're ready to stop the meal to meal tracking, and I don't want you to think meal tracking altogether, and we're going to get into that where people really want to get away from that altogether. But three signs that you really want to get away from that meal to meal tracking is one, you can't eat without logging. Like you find yourself someone that like whether it's before you eat the meal or after the meal, you've got to go to your MyFitnessPal to get either that validation or maybe you're uncertain. That would be one sign. Another one is that your hunger and cravings are unpredictable. I find that when people do not follow a meal plan and instead they're just following a macro structure, that because their macro structure is just seen more as a lump sum of numbers throughout the day, they have less leptin and ghrelin stability throughout their day. One of the first things that we're going to do on day 2 is we're going to lay out one, the structure of your day. How many times do you want to be eating during the day? And we really base it on your life. What time are you getting up in the morning and what time are you going to bed? No two people are necessarily going to be the same on that meal timing, but really coming back first to that first and foremost and seeing the power in that, because if your hunger and cravings can become predictable, that becomes much easier to stick to. I mean, how many of you didn't have the crazy hunger coming and going would feel like you could actually stick to something, for longer than a few days? That one is, so some days you're starving, other days you have no appetite. This is all because you've not honored that meal timing consistency. And I would say also your meal containers, meaning, listen, you don't want to have no food all day and then expect at this like next meal to not have some crazy hunger dysregulation. This is why a lot of ladies will go, I don't feel like I eat hardly all day, and then they get to dinner and they just can't even seem to get satisfied. Well, you've dysregulated these hormones over here, and now you're expecting them to get online suddenly and feel safety in that meal when you've not had any consistency to prove that you're going to give it more a few hours later, right? So if your hunger and cravings are unpredictable and all over the place, this is a sign that you want to stop this meal to meal tracking and really get on with this meal plan that I'm going to show you. And then number 3 would be that you feel guilty eating untracked meals. If social events stress you out, restaurants, or if you find that if you can't find the macros for it, you don't know how to behave, then you definitely want to stop the meal to meal tracking and start to focus more on behaviors. And you're going to see a huge shift in just one, when you do go to these social events, you'll be a lot more relaxed, which is then going to, I mean, yes, it may only be inflammation, but nobody likes to wake up 2 pounds heavier after a night of what you feel like you've made good decisions at, right? So now you'll have less stress at those events and actually enjoy the events more. Okay. Now, let's not make the mistake of not understanding the difference between meal fatigue and plan fatigue, because you do have to have a plan, like period. Like there's got to be some tracking. The data does matter. And a lot of people say, I'm really just tired of following a plan, Amy, and I really want to just intuitively eat. And I love that word because intuitively eating implies that you already have mastered precision eating, because you don't earn the right to intuitively eat if you haven't ever really mastered your eating altogether, because that would imply that I've done so well at something that now I can just kind of do it on a whim, right? So when people tell me like I'm really just tired of, following my meal plan, I tell them like I think you don't realize that you are not tired of your food. You're just tired of thinking about the food. So let me just kind of break this down for you because hopefully this will make you start to see that you do in fact still need a plan. You've just been looking at it different. So in the wrong way. So meal fatigue will be something like you're bored with the same foods. You need more variety. The foods itself feel repetitive. I mean, how many of you have experienced that? Like, I know I have, I know all of us have had, and that sometimes leads us to not sticking to the plan. But the solution is very, very easy in that we just need to start incorporating more recipes. We need to try different flavors. We need to add in other, vegetables, whatever, just to make it a little bit, easier and change it up. Plan fatigue is different. You're exhausted by the mental load of deciding. You want less thinking. You're like, I just don't want to think about it, Amy. Like, I'm just so tired of it. I get it. I was there as well. The process of planning feels overwhelming. And so, of course, the solution is to simplify the system, but simplifying the system does not mean intuitively eating, unfortunately. Okay. You do need that mental piece, but here's the thing. When you start subbing and winging your meals and calling it intuitive, that is just mental rebellion because the structure feels hard. I am a big believer in owning the fact that this is not an easy thing to master, especially if your identity is not really like aligned yet with a fit person that looks like they train, that is an athlete. That's who I always try to like envision, an athlete. Like, so when I'm struggling and I don't, my fridge is like not ready to go, I'm like, listen, an athlete would have a stocked full fridge. That's who I'm aiming to be, right? So you've got to see that the structure, admit that the structure feels hard, but if you constantly cave to plan fatigue, like you never built that skill of consistency. And consistency is what wins the game here of long-term sustainability. Okay. So you stay in that cycle of start strong, fizzle out, when really it's that you got to really lean into the fact that it may feel hard at first because you're learning to become a new person, that they by default meal plan, they by default meal prep, they by default sit down on Sunday evenings and plan out their meals for the week because they know that winging it no longer is going to serve them. Okay, so know that most of us, we've got meal fatigue. And that is where I am like the queen of, serving you up with the meals. The plan fatigue, that's something that you do have to lean into and accept that you can't get away from. Like you will eventually get to the place where you can intuitively do things. And I don't weigh I call them my meat meals. I no longer weigh my lunch and dinners, but I had to get there by earning that through weighing my food for so many meals to then know what my body needs based on looking at that. Okay. So the tracking brain, it's constant decisions, mental exhaustion. You're dependent on an app. I bet you constantly feel like you're thinking about food, right? Because you're always in that app. So every single meal, you're back into that decision fatigue versus a structured brain where, yes, we still have had some tracking, but we now have a meal card system with, with a lot of mental freedom because we no longer need to be going in at every single meal. We now just got to focus on our execution and actually doing the work like the meal prep, getting in the kitchen and doing it. We no longer need to be thinking about the math. Okay. So tomorrow, what we're going to talk about is the 3-step meals over macros framework. Okay. And what that means is basically how we create our meal cards. It's matching our protein and matching our calories. Now, what you're going to see through, and I want to go to this first here, is right up here is some QR codes. I want you to go to the meal plan one. If you have not downloaded this yet, this is something that is free for everyone. You're going to go in, you're going to give some stats to it. In fact, let me see if I'll show you what that page is going to look like in just a second. You're going to want to go there and download your free meal plan because tomorrow night is when we will go through that together. Hold on, let me just find it for you guys, like a landing, like what it will look like to make sure you're there. Okay, it will look just like this. Okay, you're going to come here, you'll click on this, and then you're going to put in your age, you're going to put in your height, your activity level, full name, email address, hit get my plan. Make sure that you, and I'll fill one out right now. How old am I? 47 or 48? Okay. Because I want to show you that sometimes it will go to your spam. You need to check it. Okay. Oops, full name. Now, there are some outliers when it comes to this, but I want to talk a little bit about what you are getting. We'll hit get my plan. Okay. Now, this is where people, every now and then I get angry people that reach out and go, I think this is free. Oh, you're selling me something. Well, of course, I'm going to tell you about Look Like You Train. So, but you don't need, this is just, of course, telling you about something, but you can ignore it and it, come down and just, ignore. It's still going to email it to you. Do not worry about it. I want to see where I say, I want to make sure it just got sent to me. But anyways, you basically do not have to, buy into anything. Let's get it to the end.
I'm pumped for you to experience what real.
Hold
let's make
on,
it happen.
just want you guys to see it. So that will go away. Now let me double check, make sure it came to my email because I want to experience it just like you all. Now, outliers. There are going to be some outliers on this and you will see. Okay, yeah, so I just got my email. It's going to say your meal plan is ready. So let me share my screen again because I want you guys to see all of this. So you're going to see this. Now, is this custom to you? The foods are not custom to you, but what is custom to you is the weight, everything for you. And I say this because I just finished taking 65 ladies through a 28-day deficit test. This is the exact meal plan they used. Okay. And even those that were, because I would say an outlier, if you're over 200 pounds and you fill out the form, based on your height, you may get an email that's going to say, hey, listen, we're starting you a little bit less than 11 times body weight, because otherwise everyone tests the deficit at 11 times body weight. So you're going to click on that. Now let me stop my share and I will share the page that it's taking you to. Okay. Then it's going to bring you here to your meal plan. Yours will be custom to you. Mine is based on 140 pounds. So my deficit is going to be at 11 times body weight, 1,540 calories, okay? Now, ignore the food for tonight. Promise me that you're going to ignore the food. What I want you to pay attention to tonight is the calorie containers. So meal one, I only have 185 calories before my workout. I don't personally like to have a lot. So as you see, a lot of these meal cards were built based around my own desires. Maybe you want to have more first thing in the morning. You're going to be able to see how you'll be able to shift things around. And then last but not least, you're going to put the food items in. But what's important first is to see how many meals that you need to have to get in all that protein. Like, let's say that you're like, Amy, I really only want to have 4 meals. So I know you sent me this meal plan that's got 5. Well, you're going to learn tomorrow night after I go through everything, how to rearrange this so that you still end up at the end of the day with the 1540 and 140 grams of protein. Okay. Now, one thing that we all have in common is we all, on every single meal plan that is downloaded, you're going to see at least one 400 calorie meal card. And the reason we did this is because I wanted you to experience right out the gate what it's like with a meal card life, in that imagine every single one of these meals having hundreds of different options for you to use. So let me go here and just put 400. Okay, so as you saw on that meal plan, there was a 400 calorie meal for dinner. So let's say you don't want to have that. What we teach you is as long as your meal, so on your meal plan that you download, it's going to have a calorie amount and a protein amount. All you have to do in order to use any other meal card is have it be within 5 calories of the target. So 395 to 405 is fair game. And it has to contain at least 80% of the protein that was listed on your original plan corresponding. So at this meal right here, meal 5 on my sample, it's 38 grams. So in order to find out what 80% is, I mean, you can do the math or you can ask Chat GPT, hey, chat, what is 80% of 38? What I like to do is I come through on my meal plan with a pencil because I will print this out and I will write in with a pencil what that minimum is. So like on this meal where it says 38, I might write in red 32 because 32 is the lowest I can ever go at that meal as I start to create meal cards. Okay. So let's go back to my 400 calorie one. So I know that as long as it's 395 to 405 and 32 grams of protein, it is fair game for me. So I can come through here. I can make shredded chicken tacos. I can make the Outback deep fries. I even can eat the fries supreme because it's got 36. I can make the chicken quesadillas. I can make the taco salad. So as you can see, pretty much all of these have over 32 grams of protein. This one barely makes it here, but still the cottage cheese bowl, my Big Mac loaded bowl, it goes on and on. I even have a couple fast food, Chick-fil-A in here, a protein shake with an English muffin. Point being, notice how I'm not mentioning any number other than your calories and your protein. I don't care about the carb breakdown. I don't care about the fat breakdown. In fact, we have learned over the years and through all this experience that while we have built a training day and an off day meal template for all of our clients, what matters at the end of the day is consistency. I have had clients follow their training day meal template all the time because they like the foods better on that meal plan. And that then meant they were more consistent, which meant the consistency, and that consistency always is going to override any other macro breakdown. So the key is downloading. Will the QR code? Yes, it will be downloaded. And let me go back to that really quick. It will be emailed, and so will, if you scan this right here, the replays, there's going to be a landing page that it will take you to. As soon as we get done tonight, I will put the recording up on that landing page. And that's also going to be a place where the meal plan, you can go there and download your meal plan, because tomorrow night you do want to come understanding that we're going to create a brand new meal plan for you based on that, taking your own likes and just understanding the reason why we do this. Because at the end of the day, I mean, I've got 5 kids. I didn't even give a little bit of my other story. So after I lost my 90 pounds, I've got 5 kids. I actually still have 5 kids in house. So my 26-year-old moved back in, and so I need to live in a lot of order and structure and routine for us all to be seamlessly working together. And so one of the things that I love about meal cards is I will show you tomorrow night. I just have like a dry erase board. It's just like a 10 by 13 that I leave in the kitchen. My children then go get my recipe card box. These are where my meal cards are. So what you saw in that document, I have now transferred onto recipe cards because I'm old school and I love the good old recipe card feeling. I've named them all, and then my children go through and they decide on our meals for the week. So we're in a soup, we're loving soup right now, and everyone in our Look Like You Train group is going to start to take advantage of that, because when my family's wanting something, you're going to start to see that. Then I was going to see if I could find them here. Where is my Firefox here? Hold on. I'll show you some of the other creations here. But what I do in our Look Like You Train group is when I do share these with everyone, I will always show you how to create, say, like a 400 calorie meal card or a 500 calorie meal card. So like I made this one. put all of it together, weighed it all out for everyone. I did all the math. And then down here, if I wanted to make a 400-calorie meal card, I could take 350 grams of this crock pot chicken, 100 grams of sticky rice, and 15 grams of cheddar cheese. So I'm a big believer in that once you do the work, there is some math sometimes required in making these meal cards for yourself. But once it's done, the key is then transferring that onto an actual card, because I don't go back to a food sub calculator. Once I get this done and once I have some on rotation, then if I'm being realistic, I probably only make about 2 new meal cards a month because I have so many now that I've created that I don't need to. Now, of course, like I said, this week I had 2 that I've posted in the group because my kids were on a soup and crock pot fix. And then, they wanted these turkey bowls that I made one morning. So again, sometimes it takes putting that work together, but once you've done the work and you have these meal cards created, as long as it hits your protein and your calories, nothing else matters. And it started to make me even not demonize food. I had a friend come visit recently and she makes these most amazing cinnamon rolls. And so Eric was joking that maybe she could make a 500-calorie meal card with like maybe the cinnamon roll. And she was like, maybe I could put in some protein powder. And she went home and she ended up making an awesome cinnamon roll. Don't get me wrong. But in order for it to really not lose its like fun in her amazing cinnamon rolls, anything more than with about 10 grams of protein in the cinnamon roll, it just didn't really taste as great. And while it was okay, it would have worked. I said, you know what? How about this? Why don't you create a 350-calorie amazing cinnamon roll with no protein powder in it? And I just stack it with one of my um, clear protein drinks. So I hit my protein and I don't demonize my food, right? Versus trying to make something like protein heavy. And don't get me wrong, I have really learned over time to add more protein into things. But good golly, if it takes away from what I'm really enjoying, then what is the point? So I just don't demonize things. I'm like, I have 500 calories to play with. I need to hit 25 grams of protein. Okay, well, my clear protein is, and this is how fast the math can be in your head. Okay, let me just show you really quick. So let's say that I have a 500-calorie meal card. It's 125 grams of chicken breast, 150 grams of sticky rice, and 25 grams of cashews. I know because this is one of my meal cards. And I want to have a burger tonight. Okay. I'm going to take my chicken. I'm going to sub it out for the ground beef. Okay. Then I'm going to take my sticky rice and I'm going to sub it out for my bun. But I'm going to see that my sticky rice was like 200 calories. My bun is only 130. Okay. So I'm going to just do the mental math. I'm going to write a note. Okay. I've got my beef. I've already subbed that out. Now I've got my sticky rice. I've subbed it out for a bun, but I've got 70 calories extra that I'm just keeping on the side of my head here. I sub out my cashews for my cheese because I want a slice of cheese on my burger. Now I've got these 70 calories left. I go to chat. I say to chat, I have these Alexia air fried shoestring fries. Here's the label. I've got 70 calories to play with. How many can I have, chat? And chat's going to tell me. And now I have created a burger with fries from my chicken, rice, and cashews. But here's the final step. I'm going to take the time to take out a card and I'm going to write it on there and I'm going to call it my burger and fries. So my brain doesn't see 117 grams of ground beef and, you know, 32 grams of cheddar cheese. Sure, those are the small details. But what my brain sees when I'm getting ready to do my meal planning for the week, cheeseburger and fries on Thursday night. Big difference, a big difference in the way that you see that. Okay. So let me come back to some of these questions. And so let's say I want to do with a cinnamon roll. So let's same 500 calories. Okay. And remember and I've got to hit 25 grams of protein. Let's make that, or let's make it even a little bit harder. Let's make it like 27 grams of protein I got to hit because that might be a little bit harder. So I got 500 calories to play with and I got to hit 27 grams of protein. And I know that I really wanted to try this protein drink, right? But let's say really primarily I wanted that cinnamon roll that Jessica made. And the cinnamon roll was 350 calories. So now I've got 150 calories left, but I've got to hit at least like 26, 27 grams of protein. So I look at this is 100 calories and it's got 22 grams. Well, I've got still, I need to hit 50 more calories and I need to get it like 4 to 5 more grams of protein, depending on what my limit. Well, I then keep on hand what I call my protein stackers. I've got, I don't have to get too far away from here, but like I have these types of beef sticks. These ones are 60 calories and 7 grams of protein. I have the little mini sticks that are like 5 grams of protein. I have little yogurt cups that are 50 calorie ones or 60 calorie ones. Point being, I start to add all of these into my little like repertoire of protein stackers. So then I'm like, okay, so I've got this. I need to have a mini beef stick. That's 50 calories. So there's my 150. And now I can have my cinnamon roll. Again, doesn't have to be really hard. Write it down on a card. Now I know that anytime I'm like, my friend brings over her famous cinnamon rolls, I'm like, you know what? I don't have to say no to this. I can so just make a meal card and sub it right in. All right, let's see. My phone, the QR code. Did anyone else go onto the QR code and did it not work for some reason? You should just open up your camera and it should just pop up and you click it. I just want to make sure that you get it. Jennifer, look like you train is incredible. Thank you so much. The workouts and support are the best. I love that. I love you guys in the group. Yes, QR code will be sent. That's what I do, Christina, same food day, because I love that. Exactly. If you just want to follow one meal plan, I mean, we've always said that macros don't really matter, but we have created this because here's the thing. They don't matter in terms of fat loss, but that doesn't mean that like people don't utilize more carbohydrates better on training days. I mean, we use it more for fuel. So I would definitely want to use more carbohydrates than fats. But is it wrong to have fats? No. Okay, the principles are still there. Most of us are not going to even notice the breakdown of that macronutrient breakdown anyways. So we've just seen over the years that it just doesn't really matter. I mean, I used myself as the guinea pig. I stopped using my off day diet and just started creating meal cards because I found that my family at dinner time, honestly, they always wanted carbs. They always wanted potatoes. They always wanted bread. And I was tired of my damn salads. And I'm like, is it really not, we don't believe that the macro breakdown doesn't matter. And all the data, all the research shows it does, it's a caloric deficit, caloric deficit, caloric deficit. So then I started to go, well, what do I really like? Don't get me wrong. I love what I call my big ass salads. I love those. And I do still create those, and those end up being low carb. But not because I need to go low carb, but because I like it and I enjoy it. And I start to always default to what do I want? Because if I eat what I want, I can live this as a life, whether I'm in a deficit or if I'm in maintenance. Okay. Um, is the landing page in school or is the landing page in school? No, it'll be different. The landing page is it's just like a page to go and get all the recordings from. I don't even know what to call it. My business coach put it up there. Hey, how can you measure from a crockpot meal? Okay, crockpot meals are interesting. So I posted this in the group. Basically, what you do, you can weigh each item separately. So because your weight amount is different than your calorie amount. So like I didn't need to so what I did when I made mine yesterday was I took the broth, the 2 cups. I weighed out what those 2 cups of broth were, okay, by weight. Then I took my 2 cans of my tomatoes and I weighed that out and I just started putting them into my crock pot, okay? My chicken, I weighed all of that as well and put it in. Then I had the total weight of it and that was like 3,000 grams. And then I figured out all the calories, which if you have Chronometer, I mean, I just put them all in there. Now, if you're in Look Like You Train, you get the advantage of sharing with each other and, hopefully learning. But Chronometer is great. You can put all your ingredients in there and it will actually even figure it out for you the weight wise. I just put it all on my scale. What I tell myself is it a pain in the butt the first time? Absolutely. But I mean, this is a lifestyle for me. I really want to live this way. So it's an investment of my time the first time. So, like, I have now a ground beef chili one that I've done all the legwork on. I have a white chicken chili one that I've done all the legwork on. And then in the last 2 weeks, I did a new creamy chicken crock pot one. And then another one. What have my kids called that one? It's got like cream corn and it's kind of a Mexican white chicken chili. And yeah, I've put in a lot more legwork over the last couple weeks, but the reward is once it's done, I literally know if I want to titrate it to 200 grams, to 300 grams, to 400 grams, I will now know exactly how much it is every single time I make this recipe. So I just see it as an investment for on the other side. Tammy, so you only worry about the calories and protein? Yep, not the carbs and fat. No, I don't. Not at all. It makes it so much easier. Um, I will trim the thickness of the bun. I've done that before, or I've been like, oh, I'm 10 calories over. Okay, take off 3 fries at Chick-fil-A. I can't have that, or whatever it is that I'm doing. Okay, QR code worked. Let me share that again one more time. I'll keep that up for you. There is the QR code to scan. So save the link to the replay page because like I'll have the recording up there later. Let's see here. Do you recommend whole grains as a first choice? Yes. So tomorrow night when we kind of go through the templates. So I built these templates not necessarily putting in 35 grams of fiber on there because these were just food items. Now I'm going to recommend to you as your base meal items that you put on that template as I will show you how to sub things in and out. Yeah, I would look for, more fibrous rich, nutrient dense foods, but I don't demonize food. So I don't want to say should you or should you not. Like, I think primarily you always, first and foremost, should look for things that will make you more consistent. I think over time, people's shape of their food items will shift and they'll start to eat a little bit more healthy and they'll gravitate towards some of those other things. But I think at first, when you're testing out your own brain to see if this will work for you need to do it in a way that really like it challenges your old beliefs. Like if I have a client that says, "Oh, well, I could never have that chocolate," I freaking build it in. I build it in from day one that I want them to see that they can associate success with having a piece of chocolate or associating their success with not being perfect. Like if I have a perfectionist that comes on as a one-to-one client, I'm going to implement that they go out to eat once a week at first and that they're going to take that off-plan meal to associate that they can still have success while still doing that. So make sure you have the QR scan code for tomorrow. I know tonight was mostly talking and hopefully just kind of agitating the pain of you're tired of tracking with MyFitnessPal, and hopefully you're starting to see like, okay, I could get behind the meal card method. And if I do it this way, I mean, then you'll start to see if you start going back to some of my old posts. I mean, like build the 400-calorie meal because I am always, even if I'm eating 500-calorie meals, I always share 400-calorie out on the main page because I just know that that is going to be an average calorie amount that a lot of ladies are eating. And so it's always going to be a default. So I would definitely do that. How many servings in the crock pot? So you don't really know because it's going to give me the whole weight amount. So let me kind of show you again that, let me stop that share and let me go back to the Facebook group. Because the one that I shared, this one here. Okay. So let me kind of go over it. So the full recipe was 680 grams of shredded chicken, 2 large cans of diced tomatoes, a block of cream cheese, a Hidden Valley Ranch packet, and 2 cups of broth. Okay. The whole recipe weighed 3,173 grams, but the calories was 2,212. So basically, I could even tell you per 1 gram what it was going to be. But what I can tell you is, because I know that a lot of people are aiming for 30 grams of protein per meal, that a 400-gram serving of this is going to give you 280 calories. So how many servings are in a full batch? Well, it depends on how much you needed a serving. Like if I needed 400 gram servings, well, let's see, if I've got 3,100 3,100 by weight, and I need 400. That would tell me I have 7.7 servings at that amount. But it could be that, this is why I like to do it this way, because you literally can plug in any amount. Like if you've got a 250 calorie meal, you can still plug in my soup. If you've got a 500 calorie meal, you can still plug in the soup. You could make it all soup. You could make it some soup with others. Like as a 500 calorie meal, for example, I wouldn't want to do it all as soup because it's unnecessary protein. You know, maybe I want to have some rice. Maybe I want to have some cheese with it. Like you don't have to have it all as that, right? Does that hopefully answer that for you with that? Because I love crock pot meals and they have been a discouragement at times because here's the thing. People don't take the time to weigh it out the first time. They don't see the value in doing it long term, and it is so worth it. Got in late. Where can I get the recorded? You will get the recorded version. It will be emailed out, but if you scan these two QR codes, you will see that the the replays are going to be sent to this landing page. But like I said, it'll get emailed out, but it will be in the morning. So whereas like hopefully tonight, we'll get this put back up on there. So check your email tomorrow if you registered. It will be there. Download the meal plan so you're ready for tomorrow. Yes, you take the total divided, yes, by the amount of calories and protein you need. Yeah. And you know what? You could feed it even to chat. That I love chat for this simple math. Like, okay, like let me and if you need to get off, you guys get off because I won't I don't think I'll have any more questions that I'll answer, but let me do this one for you in chat, okay? Because I love the voice feature. Okay. So I'm literally going to open up my chat GPT. I'm going to go to my little microphone. Okay. I have a recipe and it weighs 3,173 grams. And for the total recipe, it's 2,212 calories, 246 grams of protein. Now, I would like you to tell me how many grams I could have by weight if I wanted it to be a 300 calorie serving, a 350 calorie serving, and a 400 calorie serving. Okay, let me let it think for a minute, y'all, because it's transcribing. Okay, and I'm going to read my math. Okay, I have a recipe. It weighs 3K, and for the total recipe, okay, good. So now it's saying to me, let's calculate how many grams of your recipe you can have per serving based on your total recipe stats. Your recipe totals, it gives me a recap because I've told my chat to always show my math because it does make mistakes, you guys. So now it tells me for 300 calories, I would have 430 grams. For 350 calories, I would have 502 grams. And for 400 calories worth of it, I'd have 573. Now let's say that you're like, okay, that's great. Now, I want to have a 400 calorie meal, but I only want to have 200 of the calories to come from the soup. How many grams would that be? Now, I'd want to make sure that it still hits my protein amount, but I'm going to check and see. It's going to tell me how many grams. Perfect. You only want 200. That's going to be 286.9 grams. How much protein would be in that 200-gram serving? Okay, this is going to tell me if I don't hit that amount, that threshold, then I may need to add more to it. But this is a great way to use chat. Probably the only way I suggest using chat. I don't ever think you should use chat to ask it for nutritional information. It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. It just goes to Google search page one. It's just like MyFitnessPal that anyone can add anything. So the best thing to do is always first feed it information. Always give it the nutritional information you already know. Then it will totally calculate like, hey, chat, here's my 3 ingredients. Here's the nutritional information on it. Now make me a 350 calorie meal card. Okay. So that will hopefully help you with the, at least the crock pot. That helps us get ready and excited for tomorrow night. I will show you how I put together a week meal plan in less than 10 minutes with my kids, how we do not see it as a diet anymore, and how then I'm going to share with you the stats of those that followed this meal plan that you're going to download for 28 days and how you could be anywhere from 2 to 7 pounds lighter in 28 days of following it. So I'm excited for tomorrow night. Come back 7 o'clock. Bring your questions, pen and paper, download it, and be on the lookout for my email with this replay. All right. Have a great night, you guys. Take care.